I want to introduce Rani Nagpal, right? That's correct. Who is the Chief Marketing Officer and co-founder of Sixth Revision, who is a full-service digital agency specializing in branding and comprehensive digital marketing campaign execution. And she's going to drill down on landing page strategies and how creative can help turn those visits into revenue, right?
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you.
So I guess Seth gave a nice introduction for me, so you're familiar with who I am, what I do. And also he had a great presentation talking about how you can actually get traffic to your company's page using natural search and paid search. And I'm actually going to talk about what you do once the traffic comes to the site. Because I think a lot of the times, we focus so heavily on marketing strategies in terms of, okay, what are the banners, what does the ad copy say, what are we telling the audience before they come to our site? But once they actually come to the site, we're not necessarily thinking about so much what's the optimal way to communicate with this audience to get them to do what we want them to do. So in certain cases, maybe you're selling a product. So how do you get the person to make that purchase? In other cases, maybe you're a social media company like Facebook, and your goal is to register new users. So thinking about how do I get someone that comes to my site completely focused on registering for my product or buying my product. So go to the next slide. So really, the main sort of key point that I'll drill down is this idea of clarity. A lot of the times we, want to tell everyone, we have this great product. We want to tell everyone a story about every single detail. What are the benefits of using our product and buying our product? But the idea is that you want a page that's very clear. So the idea is that you want the messaging, first of all, to be very clear. Be very careful about the amount of copy that you use on the page. People don't like to read. People have limited attention spans, so you have to hook them in right away. And then, along with that, the design of the page. How is the navigation set up? What sort of images are you using? That's also very important. And it needs to have a very clear appearance. Think of, I guess Apple is a good example. They have a very, very simple page. It's very cleanly designed. You immediately go to the page. You see where they want you to focus. And then finally, again, you want to make sure that you have that clear action funnel. So what does that mean? Again, going back to this idea of, are you trying to sell them something, or are you trying to have your audience register for your product? This idea of, through the right type of messaging, the right type of design elements, you really create this funnel where there's not a choice of what they're going to do. They immediately know, I'm going to take X action, and that's the action that you are looking for them to take on the page. You can go to the next slide. So I thought I'd use Netflix as my example to sort of map out some of these items in more detail. Obviously, I'm assuming everyone here is pretty familiar with Netflix. They spend a good amount of money establishing their brand presence. So again, if we look at their page, we can see that they've very cleverly limited the amount of text. There's very little text on there. So immediately okay, what is the value of Netflix? What does it do? Who are they? And basically every single piece of copy in the page is working to get that new customer. Next slide. So again, this is just sort of mapping out the idea. They have the commanding headline on the page, which immediately makes you excited. You're looking here, it says watch TV shows and movies anytime. And then also, very clearly stating the pricing along with start your free month. So, I guess a lot of the times when you found a new company, there's this talk of creating the elevator pitch. How are you going to sell your company to potential investors, or if you meet someone and you're networking, what's the elevator pitch? So I guess in a sense you can almost think of that idea. What at the core is the value of your company, your product, what you're trying to do, and you can maybe apply that to your landing page. And again, just remove all the extraneous language and just get to the very core of why your product or service is great. We can move to the next slide. So one thing that we'll notice here is that Netflix has a price, and I think a lot of times when you have products, sort of your assumption is, well, maybe I shouldn't have the price on there. What if it's too high? Or I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to have the price just there. For whatever reason, when you see price on the page, it adds an air of authenticity. There have been several studies that have been performed to see what's the conversion rate of a page that mentions the pricing versus a page that doesn't mention pricing. And for whatever reason, people just respond better to pages that clearly state, okay, here's a value proposition, here's the actual cost of this product or service. And now Netflix, as I mentioned earlier, obviously spent a ton of money establishing their brand, so you trust them, you're familiar with them. But if you're a startup, you're a brand new company, you don't have an established reputation yet. You haven't spent hundreds of millions of dollars advertising and building that trust with your potential customers. So in that case, sometimes it helps to have a logo for Better Business Bureau or just some sort of organization. Trustee is a good example if you have a product where you're collecting personally identifiable information from consumers, which could be email or name or address, just so they know if I enter this information, it's safe. It's basically, they're interacting with you and you're a stranger, and this just makes them more comfortable taking that action. Go to the next slide. So if you look at the Netflix page, again, it's very clear what they want you to do. Through their image choice and through the color choice on that navigational button, you very clearly know, okay, immediately when I land on this page, what they want me to do is click on the Start Your Free Month button and proceed. You don't get distracted. You immediately are drawn into taking that action, and you know that's how you need to proceed. So another big one is, I always say, avoid using Flash. Now, I know, sometimes there's this thought of, well, Flash will make my site look pretty, or a lot of times you'll see on hotel sites or restaurant sites, it's all Flash graphics and going between different elements. Flash actually can do a lot to cause attrition. In certain cases, if you're using an Apple device, it may not always process the Flash correctly. Even if you're using a PC, a lot of the times there can be errors with the Flash animation on the screen. So there have been actually countless studies on this as well, but it's always better to just have something that's static animation, no Flash. I think sort of the hallmark of good design is that it has to look pretty, but it also has to serve a function, serve a purpose, and do it well. And so I think something like Flash, sure, you can design something that's pretty, but it's not necessarily working to help you achieve what you're looking to do with your audience, which is to have them interact with your company in some way. And then also another key point, again, any sort of navigational button you want to have in a contrasting color from the background of the page. So Netflix had decided to maybe make an orangey brown button that blended in with the background. Sure, you might be able to see the ad copy that says Start Your Free Month, but you may not actually realize, okay, that's a navigational button. In this case, it's very clear that's something that you should click to proceed. So another item that Netflix has really nailed here is they have one image that's the focal point of the page. A lot of the times, we'll think that we should put many images on a page just to either depict what our product or service does or just to add visual interest. But a lot of times that can be distracting from your call to action. So with Netflix, they've chosen one key image to put on a page so that it's kind of blends in seamlessly. You're not distracted looking at a ton of pictures. You just see that one image. What they've also done is they've used images of people. Now, there have been several studies done that show, and you probably maybe even know this in your own lives, if you see a picture and just a bunch of items, maybe a city landscape, and there's a person in it, you are immediately drawn to look at that person. And also, for whatever reason, psychologically, we respond a little bit more readily to pages that have people. And there's something that's called the eye gaze effect. So if there's an image of a person or people on a page, if they are looking in a certain direction, for whatever reason, without even knowing, we tend to look in the same direction. So if we look at Netflix, we see this family is sort of looking to the left-hand side of the page. They're looking at the Netflix screen, but they're also kind of looking up a little bit at the action button. So our eyes are immediately drawn to that. So of course, this is no-brainer, but always include your company logo. It's good to just spend a little bit of thought into developing a logo that you can have on the page. It just adds an air of authenticity, and really it gets people to have a little bit more trust in your brand. And then on the Netflix page, you can see that this is really the first screen that you're looking at. There's no scrolling required to do anything. In general, if you're going to have a page where someone needs to scroll down to read more, learn more about your product, you always want to make sure that you're repeating your call to action so that users stay on that track of completing whatever action it is you want them to do. If Netflix had, watch the TV shows and movies headline at the top of the page, and they made you scroll down to learn a little bit more, and you have the start your free month button right there. They didn't repeat the start your free month at the bottom of the page, below maybe some additional information they included. You may not scroll back up, but this way you're just completely cognizant as a user, okay, this is what I need to be doing. So it's really important to always repeat the call to action so that no matter what happens on the page, if scrolling is required, they take that action. So here now getting to the action funnel. So hopefully you've taken to heart this idea of using the right type of ad copy, using the right type of design, and those together should work in concert to help you get those potential users or customers through the action funnel. Something else that's important is you always want to limit the choices that someone can make on a page. So you look, I guess it's a little bit small here, but at the footer of the Netflix page, there are all these hyperlinks for other items where you can learn more about Netflix as a company, or just even with the privacy policy or terms and conditions. And what they've done is they've made that hyperlink text very small. It's at the bottom of the page. It almost blends in so you don't notice it. Because again, they don't really want you clicking around to learn more, read more. They just want you solely focused on starting your free 1-month trial and becoming a member of their service. So another key point that I think is really important to discuss is form optimization. Many times when we're looking to interact with new customers, we think that hey, it would be great to learn as much as possible about this potential customer or user, but really what happens is that causes attrition because there's this perceived amount of effort that's involved with interacting with you or your product. So it's always best to just determine what's the minimum amount of information I need to actually interact with this potential user or customer and monetize this customer. And also, again, this idea of using action buttons that are in contrasting colors to the background. So Netflix, they've done this quite well. One thing that's actually kind of nice to do with your web page is they have the Facebook Connect button, which is great. That removes all effort. Most people that are on their computer are logged into Facebook, and so with this step, you don't have to type anything, they just click and boom, they're a customer. But in Netflix's case, they've started with the minimum amount of information. They're just asking for your name, email, password, that's it. That's all they want, because they know that as soon as they start asking for more information on this page, people are going to drop off, because they're going to say, either feel that they're giving up too much information or that it's just too much effort. So really, that's important. Just take a hard look at your company and what makes sense for you to be collecting. Okay, so now, another key point is talking about the idea of a home page versus a landing page. So the home page, usually is functioning to establish corporate identity, talk a little bit about your brand, your company, whereas a landing page is typically something that someone is going to see if they click on a paid advertisement. However, when you have a home page, don't forget about the idea of getting someone to take action, because even if someone has somehow organically come across your company, whether maybe they read a press release, maybe they read an article on the blog, there's still a moment to sell that, so you don't want to forget about that. But I actually wanted to just compare and contrast Hulu and Netflix in this case, which provide somewhat similar services, and talk about what they're doing for each of these pages. So, first up, we have Hulu homepage. So this is the page you would see if you just maybe you did a Google search or just typed in their address in your computer, Hulu.com. As you can see it here, it's completely focused on the content. They want you to look at the shows that they're offering and immediately start watching one of their shows. That's what it's focused on. And this is a Hulu landing page. So this is a page you would see if you clicked on a paid advertisement that they had made. Maybe it was on Google, maybe they had a banner And you can see that for this page, it's completely focused on the registration. And they've incorporated all the best practices that I discussed previously. You can see they have a great, really compelling headline, instantly watchable TV shows. They have an action button on there that very clearly explains what's going to happen. You click on it, it stands out from the page. You have the faces on there, the eyes are facing down towards their little tablet, but also the line of vision also is pointing towards that action button. And you can see it at the bottom. Maybe it's probably blurry from the audience, but there are some other areas where you can find out more about Hulu and compatibility with certain devices. But again, they've sort of made it blend into the page so that you're not really focused on it. You just see a bunch of text, but you're going to be clicking on that giant try one week free button. So Netflix, on the other hand, went a completely different route where they had the same exact homepage and landing page. All they care about is registering you as a user. Now this is actually a very interesting and aggressive technique. Now Netflix has been in this game for a very long time, and they've spent quite a lot of money in learning about audience, potential customers, how they're monetizing their customers, and they've gotten pretty good at understanding, okay, if we collected someone's email address, how do we sell them? How do we get them to sign up for our product? And so for Netflix, what's most important, since they've spent so much money crunching the numbers and determining how they can monetize audiences, and also they've spent a ton of money in branding, they know that you're familiar with their company, and they also know that if they just have someone sign up for the free trial, that even if someone maybe doesn't continue with the service, they still have a hook into that person and can continue to interact with them and monetize them. So now I'm going to talk about just sort of comparing and contrasting pages for different types of companies two different examples for different verticals of companies that spend a whole lot of money on online advertising. So the first one is glucose meters. Now obviously diabetes is a huge epidemic in this country. It's growing rapidly, unfortunately. And so there's a whole lot of money being pumped into advertising for products and services related to management. Now, this company right here has a page where we can see, all right, there's a form, there's a lot of information, but it's almost overwhelming because you look at it, there's so much to read, there are no people on it. It's almost, if you look at it, it's not a visually interesting page. When your eyes looking at it, you just almost want to click away. And really, what's most compelling about their product is that it's free. What they've chosen to do is, in the headline, you may not be able to see in the back, so I apologize, but they have the word free in this almost illegible cursive. So, I mean, it doesn't stand out, and also it's hard to read. The text is very small on the page. So if you think about who's the target audience, well, someone's clicking on it, they have diabetes, they might actually have some sort of vision impairment as well. This page, I can barely read it. And so again, you can see that they just really haven't done a good job of creating a page where it's easy to see what someone's supposed to do or get them excited about it. Some things they have done right, at the bottom of the page, they have a J.D. Power Associate Award, which obviously lends credibility to their brand. It's that idea of the halo effect of Better Business Bureau or logos of established entities that people trust. They also have an action button that stands out in contrast from the background of the page, but it's a boring gray color that doesn't really get people excited. The button does, however, say its purpose, which is get my certificate for the free meter. So that's something that is a plus. So I guess I'm going to I'll skip to the next slide, and this page just really quickly. You can see they've done everything much better. Everything is very clearly laid out on the page. There's a lot of text, but it's in specific areas where someone can actually see what's happening. They have a large action button. The form stands out from the page, and they also have people looking right at you, which again makes the page more exciting. And they highlight the word free. So what I'm going to do is we're sort of nearing the end of the time period. We're going to go to the very end of the presentation. These are just some more examples, so I can speak to people individually after the presentations are over to walk through some more techniques. We can keep going. So another thing, obviously, you always want to have mobile optimized pages. It's key. People that are landing on your site for mobile devices, you need to see pages that are optimized for those devices. And so you can move forward, following it, and just keep going again. So, yeah, so this is just the final thought, is that even once you develop all of your pages, you have an idea of, okay, this page is working, that page is working. Never stop testing. It's important to always keep testing your pages and keep iterating on your design until you, you keep getting to better and better versions, because there's never a perfect version. So, thank you.